What if I told you there is a trillion-rand economy hiding in plain sight? Not in Sandton, not in the Cape Town CBD, but in the places most South Africans drive past without a second glance. Welcome to the Township economy, a 900 Rand billion to 1.125 trillion Rand economic powerhouse. It contributes approximately 6% to South Africa's total GDP, employs nearly 19.5% of the country's workforce, and yet remains almost completely invisible to policymakers, big business, and even the people who live inside it. Today, we're going to map the township economy sector by sector. We're going to calculate exactly how much money is leaving these communities every single day. And most importantly, we're going to show you, step by step, how to keep that money circulating where it belongs, using the same economic principles that built affluent suburbs, but adapted for township life. This is the invisible trillion. Let's start with the number that should be headline news every day in South Africa. According to the latest research from Standard Bank's Township Informal Economy Report, released in October 2025, South Africa's informal sector is estimated to be worth around 900 billion Rand. But here's where it gets interesting. Gigi Alcock, founder of Casanomics and arguably South Africa's leading expert on the informal economy, says the true figure is between 1 trillion Rand and 1.125 trillion Rand when you account for the completely unmeasured sectors. Let me put that in perspective. South Africa's entire formal retail sector is worth roughly 1.2 trillion Rand. The township economy alone is almost matching that. And yet, nearly 80% of township businesses remain unregistered. The Presidential Infrastructure Commission estimates the township economy breakdown as roughly 60% formal and 40% informal. But in practice, the line is blurry. A registered taxi operator running an unregistered Spaza shop. A formally employed teacher renting out backrooms. The township economy doesn't fit neat categories. According to Statistics South Africa's survey of employers and self-employed conducted in 2023, 1.9 million South Africans were running non-vet registered businesses, up from 1.5 million just a decade earlier. And that's just the ones we can count. Now, here's a paradox that breaks economists' brains. South Africa has one of the highest unemployment rates in the world, 33.2% in mid-2025. But we have one of the lowest rates of informal employment among middle-income countries. Research from Harvard's Growth Lab shows that while the global average for middle-income countries sees 45 out of every 100 workers in informal employment, South Africa only has 16. That leaves 29 out of every 100 workers who in a typical middle-income country would be absorbed by informal employment, but in South Africa end up unemployed or economically inactive. This suggests our rigid regulatory environment isn't killing informal business. It's preventing it from absorbing unemployment in the first place. Think about that. We don't have a jobs crisis. We have a formalization crisis. Now let's dissect this trillion Rand. Where exactly does it come from? Based on trade intelligence research cited by Gigi Alcock and the Standard Bank report, here is your sector-by-sector breakdown. Spaza shops, 198 billion Rand. The undisputed king of the township economy. Across approximately 150,000 outlets, Spaza shops are the backbone of township retail. But here's the critical detail most people miss. The Spaza shop rental economy is worth an additional 25 billion Rand annually. Foreign nationals, particularly Somalis, Ethiopians, and Pakistanis, have come to dominate this sector not because of some conspiracy, but because they operate on principles of capital circulation we'll discuss later. Taxi industry, 100 billion Rand. The industry everyone loves to hate, but nobody can replace. The taxi industry doesn't just transport people, it anchors entire value chains. The rank is where Spaza shops cluster, where informal lenders operate. At 100 billion Rand, this is double what many previous estimates suggested. Fast food and Shisanyama, 90 billion Rand. Everything from your auntie's quarter joint to the weekend Shisanyama. This sector has exploded because it serves a need formal restaurants ignore: affordable protein, social space, and cultural relevance. Backroom rentals, 50 billion Rand. The township property market. An estimated 2.5 million backrooms across South Africa's townships, generating rental income that often exceeds the bond on the main house. At 50 billion rand, this is a property sector larger than many formal real estate investment trusts. Stokvels and informal savings, 50 billion rand. This is the hidden financial sector. Stokvels, burial societies, and rotating savings clubs. This 50 billion rand represents capital that could be banked, could earn interest, could be leveraged for business loans, but largely isn't. This is patient, community-trusted capital sitting in cash boxes and burial society accounts. Liquor, 50 billion rand. Taverns, shebeens, and informal alcohol sales. This is one of the most controversial but economically significant sectors. It employs thousands, generates massive revenue, but also carries significant social costs. The question isn't whether it exists, it's whether we can formalize and regulate it to maximize economic benefit while minimizing harm. E-hailing, 24.5 billion rand. Uber, Bolt, and local e-hailing services operating in township routes. This is the newest major sector, representing the digitalization of township transport. At 24.5 billion rand, it's already a quarter the size of the traditional taxi industry and growing rapidly. Township factories, 18 billion rand. Small-scale manufacturing, bakeries, brickmaking, and production facilities operating from garages and backyards. This is the sector with the highest potential for import substitution and local value chain creation. Funeral industry, 12 billion rand. Undertakers, casket makers, transport services, catering for funerals, and burial plot sales. In African communities, funerals are major economic events. The average township funeral costs between 15,000 rand and 50,000 rand. With hundreds of thousands of deaths annually, this 12 billion rand sector is recession-proof and deeply embedded in community structures. Beauty and hair, 10 billion rand. Hair salons, nail technicians, skincare. This is one of the most entrepreneurial sectors, with extremely low barriers to entry. But it's also where product importation drains money from the township. Most hair products come from outside. Add these measured sectors, and you're at 627.5 billion rand. Add the unmeasured, the backyard mechanics, the construction crews, the event promoters, the digital hustles, and you easily cross 850 billion rand to 900 billion rand. Now apply the multiplier effect. If the average rand circulates even 1.5 times locally before leaking out, we're at 941 billion rand. If we raise that to 2.0, we're at 1.255 trillion rand. This is not fantasy. This is arithmetic. Where is this economy concentrated? According to Statistics South Africa, Johannesburg leads with 28.9% of all informal businesses. KZN follows with 16.8%. Limpopo at 15.8%. Western Cape, Northwest, and others make up the remainder. But here's a warning sign. 5 out of 9 provinces have seen a decline in informal businesses since 2001. Not because people got formal jobs, because they got squeezed out by rising costs, lack of infrastructure, and competition. The Standard Bank survey of 250 township businesses across 5 provinces reveals the human face behind these numbers. 59% are male-owned. The average entrepreneur is between 35 and 54 years old. 64.1% of women cited joblessness as their primary reason for starting a business. 49% operate from homes or garages. Only 11% from commercial premises. On average, there are 20 similar businesses per community. And here's the statistic that should terrify anyone who cares about economic transformation. Fewer than 9% of these businesses have access to bank loans. Most rely on personal savings or family support. They are running on fumes, passion, and prayer. Now we arrive at the heart of the problem. The township economy generates 627.5 billion rand in identified sectors alone. But it doesn't retain 627.5 billion rand. Money is like water. It flows to the lowest resistance. And in the township, the resistance is extremely low. Let me show you the 5 major leaks. Leak 1. Retail imports and foreign capital flight, 248 billion rand combined. This is the double hemorrhage in the Spaza sector. First, 140 to 160 billion rand flows immediately to outside wholesalers when township shops stock products from formal suppliers in town. The profit margin stays in town. The product markup stays in town. Only the revenue passes through township hands. Second, the 25 billion rand flowing through foreign national unregistered Spaza shops is largely repatriated to home countries or circulated within closed ethnic supply chains. This is not about nationality. It's about economic integration. When capital doesn't circulate broadly in the community, the multiplier dies. Combined, this is the single largest leak in the township economy. Leak 2. Formal banking and financial services. The Standard Bank report found that while 56% of business owners prefer digital payments or bank transfers, cash remains dominant. Why? Because banking fees erode thin margins, and because many entrepreneurs use personal accounts for business due to lack of formal registration. Every rand paid in bank charges is a rand not reinvested locally. Leak 3. Transport costs. The Harvard Growth Lab research specifically highlights transport costs as a major constraint. Township entrepreneurs spend enormous amounts moving stock from formal suppliers in urban centers back to the township. Those transport costs, fuel, taxi fares, delivery fees, flow to formal sector businesses. Leak 4. Government services and regulation. Licensing, permits, fines. The city of Cape Town provides only 5,500 informal trading bays, but estimates 8,000 traders operate outside demarcated areas. Every fine, every bribe, every trip to a municipal office is money leaving the township. Leak 5. Consumer spending outside the township. The biggest leak of all. Township residents with disposable income, teachers, nurses, police officers, taxi owners, spend it in malls, online, or in the CBD. The township captures their rent and their groceries. It rarely captures their clothing, electronics, entertainment, or major purchases. The result? The Standard Bank research found that only 28% of township businesses actively contribute to a local value chain by paying other township businesses for services. A staggering 72% operate completely independently, handling every aspect themselves. This is economic fragmentation, and it's bleeding the township dry. Now let's talk about the solution. And to understand the solution, you need to understand the economic multiplier effect. In economics, the multiplier effect describes how an initial injection of spending leads to a larger final increase in national income. If I spend 100 rand at a local shop, and that shop owner spends 80 rand of it at another local business, and that business spends 60 rand locally, that original 100 rand has generated 240 rand in local economic activity. The formula is simple. Multiplier equals 1 over 1 minus MPC, where MPC is the marginal propensity to consume locally. But in the township, the MPC is lower than it should be. Research suggests that in underdeveloped communities, the local multiplier sits between 1.2 and 1.5. In thriving communities, it can reach 3.0 or higher. So we're not at 0. We're not even at 1. We're at 1.2 to 1.5, which means we're already capturing some additional wealth. But we're capturing nowhere near enough. Look at what we are already doing. At 1.2, we keep an extra 125.5 billion rand. At 1.5, we keep 313.8 billion rand. That's not nothing. But now look at what we're missing. At 2.5, we keep 941.3 billion rand, 3 times more than at 1.5. At 3.0, we keep 1.255 trillion rand, 4 times more than at 1.5. The township economy isn't broken. It's underperforming. We're not starting from 0. We're starting from 1.2 to 1.5. The question isn't whether we can survive at this level. The question is, how much prosperity are we willing to walk past? 125.5 billion rand is good. 313.8 billion rand is better. But 941.3 billion rand, nearly $1 trillion rand, is what happens when we decide to keep the money home. That's not magic. That's circulation. So how do we fix the leaks? How do we raise the multiplier? How do we keep the 627.5 billion rand and the trillion it could become circulating where it was born? Here is the blueprint. Not theory, but practical, implementable steps. Pillar 1. Local procurement mandates. Township businesses must prioritize buying from other township businesses. The 28% local value chain participation must become 80%. This means Spaza shops forming buying cooperatives to negotiate directly with manufacturers, cutting out the 140 to 160 billion rand that currently flows to outside wholesalers. Taxi associations using local mechanics and panel beaters exclusively. E-hailing drivers using township-based vehicle maintenance services. Event promoters hiring local security, catering, and sound. Funeral parlors sourcing caskets, flowers, and catering from township manufacturers. Pillar 2. Digital payment infrastructure. The Standard Bank report found that 56% of business owners prefer digital payments. We need township-specific digital wallets with near-zero fees, instant settlement, and stokvel integration. When digital money circulates locally before cashing out, every transaction is trackable, taxable, and multipliable. Imagine a township payment app where you pay the Spaza shop pays the local baker, the baker pays the local mill, and the mill pays local grain suppliers, all within the same digital ecosystem. The money never leaves the township until someone consciously decides to cash out. Pillar 3. Stokvel capital formalization. 50 billion rand in stokvels. Currently, this capital rotates within social networks and then dissipates into consumption. If even 20% of stokvel capital were channeled into a township investment fund, managed by the community, invested in township businesses, we would unlock 10 billion rand in patient capital overnight. Stokvels already have the trust. They already have the capital. What they lack is a structured investment vehicle. A township investment fund, governed by stokvel representatives, could finance everything from Spaza shop upgrades to mini factories, with returns flowing back to the same communities that contributed. Pillar 4. Backroom economy upgrading. 50 billion rand in rentals. Most of it cash in hand and banked, untaxed. By formalizing backyard rental agreements through a simple digital platform, we create property records. With property records come collateral. With collateral comes credit. With credit comes construction. With construction comes jobs. Pillar 5. Sector-specific retention strategies. Every sector leaks differently. Every sector needs a different plug. For Spaza shops, 223 billion rand. Local sourcing and cooperative buying. Currently, 140 to 160 billion rand flows to outside wholesalers. A single township-based distribution cooperative could retain 40 to 60 billion rand annually. Integrate foreign national shopkeepers into local supply chains. For taxi and e-hailing, 124.5 billion rand combined. Local fuel cooperatives, township-based vehicle maintenance, and driver-owned supply chains. Why should fuel profits flow to multinational oil companies when township cooperatives could negotiate bulk supply? For fast food, 90 billion rand. Local sourcing of meat, bread, and produce. Every quarter that uses township-baked bread instead of factory bread keeps money circulating. A township-based bakery cooperative serving 1,000 quarter joints could retain 5 to 10 billion rand. For funeral industry, 12 billion rand. Local casket manufacturing, township-based florists, community-owned burial societies. Funerals are already local events. Make them local economic anchors. For beauty and hair, 10 billion rand. Local manufacturing of hair products using indigenous ingredients. Currently, 90% plus of hair products are imported. A single township-based manufacturing cooperative could retain 2 to 3 billion rand annually. For township factories, 18 billion rand. Scale up. These are already local. The goal is to double this sector to 36 billion rand through cooperative expansion and local procurement mandates. For liquor, 50 billion rand. Local brewing and distribution cooperatives. Township brewed traditional beers, formalized tavern supply chains, and community-owned distribution networks. The township economy is not a charity case. It is not a problem to be solved. It is a 1 trillion rand economy, measured, real, and right now, that is being mismanaged. Nearly 20% of South Africa's workers are in this economy. It contributes 6% of GDP. It houses the most entrepreneurial population on the continent. And it is running on 9% credit access, 80% informality, and 28% local value chain participation. The question is not whether the township economy can grow. The question is whether we have the will to let it keep its own money. If you live in a township, start tomorrow. Bank with a township branch. Buy from the Spaza shop that sources locally. Join a stokvel that invests, not just saves. Hire the local guy. Rent the local room. Fix the local car. Use the local e-hailing driver. Plan your funeral locally. If you run a business in the township, form a cooperative. Negotiate collectively. Digitize your payments. Register your business, not for SARS, but for your own power. If you are in government, simplify one license. Create one trading bay. Fund one cooperative. The multiplier effect is not magic. It is mathematics. And the math says, keep the rand in the township, and the township becomes a city. Keep the money home. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit the notification button and comment your township below. For further reading, Cassonomics by G.G. Alcock. The Informal Economy. Exploring Future Growth. Standard Bank.